everybody. We're actually going to do a recording on MVVM today. I had previously done a calculator that was Prism in MVVM, and I kind of wanted to make this video for beginners to talk a little bit about some of the toughest things that I had to learn when I was learning MVVM. Well, first off, what is MVVM? Well, the answer to that is it's a design pattern. And if you don't know what a design pattern is, it makes things a little standardized, a little more user friendly, so we don't end up with, the 2,000 line win forms and so on and so forth. Well, so that said, I'm going to go over a pretty basic understanding of MVVM. This way you can absolutely learn MVVM and the point of it. Alright, so today we're going to create a new project. I'm just going to create a WPF app. I'm going to store it on my desktop. Okay. This is actually going to be called MVVM. Okay. And if you don't know what it stands for, MVVM stands for Model View View Model. Okay. And so, well, how do we get started with MVVM? Understanding, Prism Prism helps you out with MVVM a lot because it has a lot of really good features that make things easier. But designing that from scratch isn't always the easiest. So I would definitely recommend you use a container with MVVM. So to do that, we want to install Unity or IOC or whatever you wish. I'm going to use Prism Unity just because that's usually what I use. You can use there's a lot of them, but basically I'm going to use Prism Unity, but I am only going to use the container of Prism. That said, there is a little bit of startup that you need to do with it. So first off, you need to add a Bootstrapper. So I always add a startup folder. Okay, and in this startup folder, I'm using ReSharper. So I won't use it to begin with, but I would definitely recommend that you do it, or at least try it. To do that, you can do extensions, updates, and then simply type in click on online, and then type in ReSharper. Okay, and it's JetBrains ReSharper, which is the top choice right there. You can download it and you get something like a 30-day free trial. I definitely recommend it because it's worth £1 million of gold. Alright, so let's go ahead and hit a class, and this is simply going to be called Bootstrapper. And if you hit Control-Alt-Insert, you will see this pop-up. That's with ReSharper. It gives you another pop-up here, and we can just say Bootstrapper. you need to go ahead and label him Unity Bootstrapper. Alright. You do have to also add another using statement at the top. This is using Microsoft practices.unity. Okay, that is also needed. So now we need to go to app.xaml, and you'll see this startup URI right here. We just want to delete it. Okay. Now if you click the little arrow, you'll see it'll expand to the next level, and you will see a C# class underneath it. You can simply override your startup. Okay, on startup. You can simply delete that and say new Bootstrapper. Okay. .run. Alright, that will give you that. If you aren't using ReSharper, you'll actually have to type the namespace up here, which in my case it's MVVM startup. That's because our project name is MVVM and our startup folder and then Bootstrap is in it, so that's the reason of that. Okay, so that said, we need to also do this. Alright, we're going to do it the recommended way, simply because that's the recommended way. So we're going to delete our main window, okay, and we're going to right click and add another folder, and it's called views. Okay, so now we want to right click and add a window and call it shell. Alright, you could actually create the views and drag main window in there. If you did, you'll notice this class, it has the namespace in it, and then the underlying class also will have to be changed as well. So your namespace will have to be changed as well there. So I'm just going to simply remove those, and we are not going to get into Prism too much, but this Bootstrapper, it will actually do a lot for us, so that's why we're using it. So that said, we're going to go back to Bootstrapper, and we're going to override, and it's going to be create container, or I'm sorry, create shell. And this is going to return application, or I'm sorry, return container.resolve, and this is views shell. Alright, and now we want to override one more too. Override, and we're going to say initialize shell. Okay, so here we just want to say application .current .main window .shell. Oops. Sorry guys about that. Alright, so now when we run this, we should have a window pop up. It came up on the other screen. So you see it does. Alright, so now we have our shell, which is great. We do not have a view model. So let's go ahead and create a new folder and create a view model. Alright, now let's go ahead and add a new class. Go ahead and call this shell view model. Alright, make it public. Okay, and we're going to have a title. It's just going to say hello from view model. And to make this work, we need to bind it here. So, on the title, you can simply put a curly braces, binding, and you can say title. When we run this, it's not going to work. And you're going to ask yourself, why is that? You see it in the title, it no longer says that. Well, that's because we haven't assigned it. So if we go to our code behind, in here you can actually say, shell view model. Say view model. Okay. So now you can say data context equals view model. Alright. And we will talk later about this, but for right now we're just going to leave it right there. Go ahead and run it. And you can now see our title has hello from view model, which is absolutely great. Alright, so now what happens when we want to have a button? We're just going to go ahead and add a button here that will say content change title, and I'm going to use a little more of an advanced feature. It's actually commanding. You just say command, and we'll say change command. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and add it here as well. And if you don't know, delegate command is another good reason to use Prism, because it's done a lot of work for you. I'm just simply going to go ahead and do that. If you type CTOR, you'll get a constructor, and in this constructor we want to go ahead and put change command equals new delegate command. Okay, and then we just say change. Okay, we're going to go ahead and create a public or private, void, call it change, no parameters, and now we say title equals I changed. Alright, so now what we're expecting when we click this, when we click the button, we would like our title to actually change to I changed. We clicked it. Well, nothing happened. Well, why is that? Well, the reason actually is we didn't implement iNotify property changed. Okay, and I'm going to use ReSharper here because it'll do all this work for me, but we'll talk about it. So alright, so what it did, it created an event called event handler called property changed event handler. Okay, and it also created a method called property changed, and then we simply invoke the event handler there. Now this caller member name, it makes sure when you implement it that you have the property name set to equal to null. The reason for that, what we want to do, okay, we want to add a private property here, or private field, I'm sorry, and we're going to call it title. Okay, so now what we want to do, and we can simply do that. Alright, so now what we want to do is we want to do exactly that. And we want to return lowercase title. Okay, And now when we set it, we want to say underscore title equals value. Okay, but we also want to call on property changed. I don't know what's going on here. Alright, I had an extra curly bracket. So ideally, when you call on property change, you want to name the name of the property, so title, right? So now when it'll know that the property has changed. So now we click it, and you see I changed, which is great. Well, the point of this caller member name is so you don't have to do that when you're calling it from inside of a setter. So now, it already knows where it's coming from. So now if we delete that and we run it, we click it, you see it still does the same. That concept really took me a while to understand. So there is that. Now, that is the basics of a view model. And you say, why do this? Why not use code behind? Well, that's a good question. And the short answer is because we can unit test things. So we're going to implement a unit test here, and we're going to go ahead and right click our solution, add new project. But what's better to do, if we right click in here and we go to create unit test, that will do all of the work for us. So let's just go ahead and do it. It'll take a few seconds to run. It'll add another project here called MVVM test. Alright, let's go ahead and delete this. And let's create it. Let's add what's called an attribute. Okay, and this is test class. Test method. Okay, and we're going to say public void and should change title when clicked. Okay, so now we can test what we can do, and I like to do this. I like to create another method, and I'm just going to use I created a snippet for this. I'm not going to go into that, but with ReSharper you can do it very easily, and Google how. But I like to create a method called init and go ahead and have an attribute called test initialized. This will run every single time before each test. So I like to create a variable, or a field, called view model. Okay, equals new shell view model. Okay, and control period will allow you to add that there. Now for all of the tests that's already been done. So first thing we want to do, we want to ensure, okay, we want to take view model, okay, and we want to say change command dot invoke, or execute. Well, it's making us add the prism to here. So you'll need to actually browse and type in prism.unity. Alright, so now it's there, and now we just want to say assert.r equal I changed, and we want to say viewModel.title. Now when we run this, you can click on it. Oh, in Test Explorer, that's not always up, so if you click on View, you can scroll down and look for it here. I don't know exactly where it is there. It might be under other windows. I honestly never do that. I just type it in here in the top. Search Test Explorer, and there it shows up, and then you simply click on it and it'll open. Alright, so you click on that and right click and hit Run Selected Test. Okay, and when it runs, it'll build and run. You'll see that you have a green. Now let's just prove that it works. Let's go ahead and go to View Model and make this not say I changed anymore. Let's make it say I want to change. Okay, so now we made a change. Now we want to test all of our, we hit run all, and we all of a sudden say, uh-oh, why did we break? Well, we clicked it, and you can simply put a breakpoint here and put a breakpoint here. Okay, and you can actually right click and hit debug. Okay, so now it'll hit your breakpoint here. Step over, you see you hit this one, and you say, oh, well now I see that we changed it to I want to change. So what you can do, you can close out of that and change this back to say I changed, and now you can run it again, and you can run your unit tests as many times as you want, as often as you want. And honestly, I do a lot of debugging through unit testing. You can absolutely test 100%, well, I'm going to say 95% of your application, because you can't really test XAML. But that's the point, and that's the beauty of MVVM. So in our next video, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start implementing some providers and some services, and making the application a bit more complex, so you can see where MVVM really helps. And thanks for watching, guys. If you liked it, please subscribe. It helps me out, it helps you out. You guys get notified when I get a new video out, and thanks so much, guys.